It's official. Students will return to class for in-person learning come September. This week, Ontario Education Minister Stephen Lecce, alongside the province's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Kieran Moore, announced what this year's return to school safety plan will look like.
As we look forward, we are grateful and excited that students are returning full-time in person within our schools in the province of Ontario. The return of in-person learning means that children will be able to interact directly with their friends and their teachers. Under this plan, students will return to a more normal in-person and full-time learning experience, which we know parents and experts have urged us to do.
Students will return to school full-time, but virtual learning will remain in place for students who aren't yet comfortable returning to a packed classroom. Masks will continue to be mandatory for all students between grades 1 and 12 and will remain optional but strongly recommended for children in kindergarten. Students from other cohorts may eat lunch together without distancing outdoors, but must remain 2 meters from other cohorts while indoors. Similar rules apply to recess, and the government says because the risk of COVID-19 transmission by using a shared object is low, shared materials will be allowed along with the use of shared spaces. That means areas like libraries and cafeterias can reopen. The biggest change in this year's school plan is extracurricular events and sports teams will return, and singing, such as in choirs, can also resume.
We sought feedback from our local public health agencies and from the various sports associations, and we think with the combination of screening, having rapid access to testing if anyone develops any symptoms, high vaccination rates in our communities, and hand hygiene, etc., all the basic protocols that we want to have in place to have our schools safe, that it is reasonable to be able to allow basketball to continue as well as hockey. All the major mandates will be in place to protect children that are participating in those sports. Certainly within your cohort it was going to be allowed, but we would like to allow broad-based participation in those sports, knowing that we want to have as close to return to normal as we can and have the benefit of the social, mental, and physical well-being of our children.
Since being released, many parents and educators say the 26-page plan doesn't go far enough to protect students. Dr. Kieran Moore says unvaccinated students will follow the same rules as vaccinated students, which many don't see as fair.
I do not anticipate any difference approach, whether a child's vaccinated or unvaccinated, on any activities within the school setting. We would not be knowledgeable of their immune status, and there shouldn't be any barriers or stigmatization of children who have not received a vaccine in any way in normal activities throughout the school year.
Plans will be in place in case schools have to switch to remote learning again. However, Ontario medical officials say that's highly unlikely. Staff and students will be required to self-screen before entering the school each day, and anyone experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 must not attend school and get tested. Ventilation in schools is also getting an upgrade, and on Wednesday, Lecce announced the government will invest $25 million more in ventilation funding for standalone HEPA filter units. But when it comes to COVID vaccinations, they won't be mandatory for students or staff. The government has said repeatedly they don't plan to force the jab. This approach has infuriated many parents who are questioning how safe schools will really be come September.
With respect to vaccines, the government has been clear, our Premier has been clear, we will not mandate vaccine requirement for schools and for staff at this point. That's not a decision point we're going to proceed with. Our aim is to encourage vaccination at a voluntary level. It is promising to see the general population numbers move north of 80% and a great level of partnership with public health units and school boards, to their great credit, of really encouraging parents, staff, and students themselves 12+ to get a vaccine. And we believe by doing so, we will help restore that more normal school experience we all aspire to achieve.
Now, it is important to note that the Ford Conservatives are the only political party within the province of Ontario to not support a vaccine mandate for all eligible Ontario students and educators before returning back to the classroom in September. Now, a few days ago, Ontario NDP leader Andrea Horwath said she did not support a mandate because it should be a personal choice, but after receiving much public backlash, she has backtracked on those statements and has apologized, saying health and safety should trump it all. Charlie Sinatiou, IN News, Ottawa.